Okay, we are going to continue to work on that simple Magic 8-Ball app using Unity. I'm sure you have your own file, but if you need it, always, if you go to class recording, file created or used in class demo, and the last one I worked on was this one, 8-Ball, like October 22nd end. Okay. All right. And then we are going to look at, we sort of finished the app last Tuesday, but there are a few things we need to discuss. Okay? So we are going to go back to that lesson 4-4. And I actually create this like extra features you should consider. So this would be kind of critical for mobile development. Okay? So I'm going to go over these things. So first, I'm going to open what I had before. So I have something like this, and I'll actually change this to smaller size. Okay, and play. I have something like this. Okay, legibility isn't that great, but here my first Magic 8-Ball app start button, and then click, restart, like concentrate and ask. So I probably need to reposition my buttons, but the idea is, if you click, it will generate a random number, and then depending on that random number, it will display different types of text down here. Okay, I do not know, concentrate, and I actually have sound. I didn't put all the sound, but I do have sound like for. I think I made like a 3 sound bites and put that in. So if you remember, we use it play one shot to do that thing. Yeah. I'm not super proud of my voice, but we have something. Yeah. Yeah. So and then restart will go back to the stage, beginning stage. So it will restart the app. Okay. So we create this loop for this app. So now, let's try to think about a few more things. Okay, one thing we didn't talk about last Tuesday is GUI skin layout. So basically, imagine that right now, it basically uses default text with default font. So what if we want to use some more customized design for our GUI layout stuff? Okay? So, I said layout. So basically, to customize design of our game object or GUI element, user interface stuff, we have to use GUI skin layout. Okay? So, let's try to do that. Okay? And your reference is here, GUI skin layout. So this is a manual part. If you go there, this is where you can find what GUI skin can customize. Okay. And now, let's see how we can do this. Okay. So you have to do like 3 things to do this. Okay. 1, we are going to create GUI skin layout. So in SS folder, okay, right click, create, you'll be able to find GUI skin. Okay. Then you'll have something like this. Okay. And you can choose any name you like to use. So I'm going to, I'll probably just name it as layout. Okay. And if you go to inspector window, you will see, okay, font, Arial, box, button, toggle, label, text field, text area, window, horizontal slider, and all you see all these different things. So in other words, if you want to use text field or simple slider, scroll bar, you can actually create that using this GUI skin, GUI layout. Okay. So this is first step. So I create that layout. Now we have to tell Unity, okay, Unity, connect this thing to this game or this app. So I'm going to open Game Manager. And again, you'll probably work with this reference all the time. So you don't have to memorize all these things, okay? So actually, I'm going to show you how to do this really quick. Okay? So first step is, okay, because we do have this GUI skin, okay, we created this layout, okay, GUI skin layout in Unity, meaning we have to connect this one to our game manager using that script. So I'm basically saying this because I want you to kind of remember how to connect things from your assets folder to your script. Okay, we use it this public, right? So we are going to use public variable, okay? Public variable of GUI skin. So this is case sensitive, okay? GUIS, all uppercase, okay? So GUI skin, and any name you like to use. I'll just use like layout. Okay. So basically now this one is, the reason why we're doing this is we need to use this layout, okay, which is GUI skin. But we are going to use that GUI skin layout created in SS folder. So if you remember the process, we will drag that layout, GUI skin layout we just created into this game manager. Okay? And to do that, this guy must be public. So now, if I just save it, go back to Unity, and then HUD. Okay, game manager now, as you can see, you will see this layout. Okay, this was possible because we made this GUI skin layout as public. So now you can drag this one into your game manager script. So now they're connected. Okay. So later on, even though you haven't fully understood about that public or private variables, okay, the easiest thing or the most critical thing you have to remember is, okay, if you create something in assets folder and connect it to your script, okay, it must be public so that you can get an access to that particular variable outside of your script, okay, meaning in Unity. All right, and now the last step. Now we have to tell Unity, okay, Unity, use this thing in onGUI function. So on GUI function, you can do, okay, GUI.skin equal the name of GUI skin we created here. So layout. Okay. So now basically we connect GUI skin layout from Unity first, and then now that's connected to content inside of onGUI function. Now let's see what's going to happen. Okay. I'm going to save this, and then now you can play it. Right now it doesn't do anything yet, okay, because we haven't customized anything yet. Okay. But now I'm going to turn off this maximize on play, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to play, and I'm going to select this layout, and here you can actually make some changes now. For instance, this is start button, so I'm going to go to button, okay, and there's name, normal, hover, active, focused, on normal, on hover, and all these things. You can now kind of play with it. So now this would be normal button, okay, and normal text color white. Now I can change this to something else. Okay. Oops. So now, as you can see, as I change this color, you see this one right over here. Okay, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay. This button right over here, okay, we are playing with this text color normal. So now you can customize its color. Okay. And then in the same way, hover. So if you put your cursor over here, okay, this is hover attribute. You can change this to something else. So now this is normal and this is hover, like yellow. So as you can see, it will be yellow color. And then for the text down here, you can choose a font or font size. You can make it bigger, depending on what you like to use. Okay. In the same way, you can do this one. This was GUI label. So now you want to find GUI label here. Okay. Then if you want to make it bigger, now what's happening though is I made my font size 30, but if you remember GUI label, you have to choose X coordinate, Y coordinate, and width and height. So now my width and height is smaller than my font, so that's why it got cut off. Okay. So sometimes you have to think about the size of your button or text area or label, okay, to make sure it's big enough to display everything. Okay. And now, let's actually look at this one. You can use the different fonts, okay? And there are many websites you can download free fonts. I usually go to like 1,000 fonts or something. It's 1,001 fonts. So if you go to 1001font.com, these are free fonts you can use. Okay. In terms of copyright, rule of thumb is, okay, if you don't make any money, you can literally use any copyrighted stuff. The reason why I say it is, actually, I shouldn't say that.
I mean, as long as you're not distributing and selling.
Okay, so
it's not a Nintendo property.
yeah, in the United States, we do have copyright, and then we do have Teach Act, meaning if that usage of copyrighted material happens in, there are a few conditions. Number one, non-profit organization. Number two, in physical classroom. Number three, for educational purpose. you can use whatever copyrighted materials without reporting anybody. That's the rule. And then George Mason University is a nonprofit organization. And then we are taking this class is an in-person, in-person class with a physical classroom. And then you are doing this, you are working on this the class project, which has educational purpose. So you can use whatever copyrighted material you want to use. That we call fair use. Okay? And number two, I used to actually teach in the School of Communications for a long time. So I was the guy who talked about that copyright issue all the time. Okay? Copyright is a little tricky. Okay? The reason why I say it is copyright is handled in civil court, civil trial court. Meaning, if you use someone else's work, like a copyright material, without telling them, okay? Number one, they have to find you and sue you. Until then, well, technically, there's no way for you to be accountable for that. Because again, this will be handled in civil trial court. And then another thing is, usually it's handled in civil trial court. So there will be the juries. So that person had to prove you using that copyright material significantly interfere his or her ability to make money. So usually it's really tricky. So that person can say, oh, that person used this, and then because of that person, I really couldn't make make a potential earning that I would have. But then again, that's really hard to prove. Okay? So usually what really happens in that case, that person would hire a lawyer, okay? And then sue you, and then will request a lot of documents. Stupid, meaningless document. Then what's going to happen is you have to respond to that person, so you will end up hiring lawyer. Then usually lawyers charge, well, about $50 to $300 for one the page of one sheet of paper, document. So if they ask you 50-page long document, you have to pay your lawyer a lot of money. And then you realize, oh shoot, maybe I'm going to win win at the court, but until then, I have to pay a lot of money to the lawyer. So usually what happens is you talk to your lawyer, okay, I really don't want to go through the whole thing, so let's try to settle down. And then they probably ask you to pay them a little money so that to settle down the case. But bottom line is, again, we are using this for educational purpose. And then another thing is, if you don't make any money, usually it's okay. But then again, they might sue you for breaching the brand. So for instance, if you use Marvel characters for your game, then you actually release it as free game, meaning you don't make any money. So you're thinking, oh, I don't make any money, so it should be okay. But they're not going to sue you as a copyright infringement. Instead, they will sue you breaching the brand identity or brand quality. Then it could be kind of some serious issue. Yes.
I've watched a lot of game journalists on YouTube who talk about YouTube system where, if a game designer has a problem with a game review, they can just issue a copyright strike.
Yes.
And
Yes.
YouTube doesn't investigate
Yes.
for 30 days.
So technically fair use, okay, if you want to study that particular game, actually YouTubers can use the game content, like a relatively or reasonably short amount of short duration compared to original the piece of work. So technically they can use it, but yeah, like you said, if you basically post or if you, I think there's a little button actually you can report, and then they usually just they put it down because of that claim. But anyways, going back to this question of copyright, okay, for your school project, okay, you can use whatever copyrighted material. That's fine. But usually we try to be responsible, meaning we have, like for instance, we don't do this here anymore, but like if you go to your script, sometimes if you use someone else's code, okay, you put some information here. So this code, originally code is downloaded from this website or something. So we try to be nice enough to indicate the and recognize the author of original content. So sometimes if you just use images downloaded online, we want to have some sort of like README text file in your SS folder, README, and then those files were downloaded online, and then I am not the author or producer of these contents. So that's kind of like a nice way for you to recognize and give credit to those people, because I mean, eventually, like say you might create something nice, and then some other people might download your stuff and use it, and at least you want to get some credit. Okay. So anyways, you can use fonts from here. These are all copyright free. So you can download any font, and I'll download this one, or let me actually. Okay, so I'm going to use this one, download. And I have this TTF, true typeface file. And I'm going to import this one into my SS folder. And then now I'm going to go to my layout. Okay, here, there's font. And I'll choose that download that font that I just downloaded. And now, if you play your game now, because we are applying this font for whole layout, okay, all the text from now on will be using this particular typeface like this. So now it's kind of hard to see. Okay, my first, yeah. And then yeah, this one a little too big. But here, concentrate and ask. Okay. So you now see you can now use customized font in your game. And you can actually use particular font for specific GUI element. For instance, if you go to layout, there's label. Oh, actually, yeah, label here. If you go down here, here, font. So you can technically apply different fonts. Okay. Different fonts for your button or label alone. Okay. So now, for this one, this is label, and I'm going to choose different font and play. And now for the label, it actually has now different fonts. And then there are many other things you can play with. So there are many different attributes you can just play with it to get to know what they do. Okay. And now, next thing we will think about is dynamic positioning using screen.width and screen.height. Okay. So we customize our font, and now it looks good. Okay. I mean, it doesn't look good, but let's pretend it looks good. Okay. So now we actually are using this 800 by 480 portrait. Okay. So if we upload this game on Google Play, if someone who uses really old Android phone with this lower resolution, it will look okay. But what if someone who uses like a recent, like a newer phone, okay, plays this content? For instance, let's say this person has 2090-60 times 1440 portrait resolution. Okay. And this person downloaded your game or app, and then, oh yeah, I want to play it. And they would see something like this. Okay. So obviously we don't want that. Okay. So to go around it, basically what we use is dynamic positioning. Okay. So I'm going to go to my font, my script. Okay. So here, if you look at the draw texture, I put it as origin 0, 0, and 480 was the screen width we had, and 800. So now what we can do is we can do this. Instead of 480, I can put screen S with uppercase, screen dot width, and screen dot height. Then basically what's going to happen is screen dot width, screen is basically kind of, once you play your game in the device, okay, that screen is considered as kind of game object. So by using screen.width, okay, Unity will read how wide your screen is. And then in the same way, you can put screen.height, it will read, okay, the screen height is currently using. Okay. So now, I'll save this. So now we have 1440 by 2960. Okay, I'll play. It actually fills up, right? And then I'll change this to smaller one. It still fills it up. It actually also works with landscape. Okay? It basically stretched it and fill this screen size. Okay? So screen dot width and screen dot height is kind of magic word you can use. And now you might wonder, oh, okay, background was easy, but what about button? Okay, so now this is small enough, so I have this button right over here. Okay. And what about this one? Now my button is here really tiny. Okay. So now I'll go back here. We do have this button right over here. So what's the best way to do this? Any suggestion? So dynamic positioning, meaning we're not going to use this fixed number. We'll use something else. And we know there's screen width and screen height. So technically, we can still use that screen width and screen height to create percentage of the screen width and screen height. Does that make sense? So instead of using 150 and 20, okay, I'm going to use something like screen.width multiply by 0.3 f. That means 30% of screen width. Okay. And then height would be screen height multiplied by 0.15 f, meaning 15% of the height will be the height of my button. So I'm going to save it. And check this. Okay, now, oops. Oh, I did save. Maybe that's small. Okay. So this is this big. Oh, this is this small. Okay, something's not working. Okay. So now I'll go back and I'm going to I'll try to kind of, oh, I am this stupid because I changed it for label. Yeah, I'm supposed to change this to button. Yeah. So I'm going to put this one in the button. Okay. And then this one, I'll just change this back to 150 by 40, just for now. But later on, it's better for us to change that too. Okay. But anyways, okay. Now this is button. Okay. So now it should work. So now my button is this big. Okay. And even if I change this to something smaller, it's still, if you look at the proportion, it's still the same. Okay. So now I probably need to tweak my number. Okay, but again, this is a 800 by 480 portrait. Okay, my button is this big. Now I'm going to go to 2090 60 times 1440 portrait. Okay. My button is still big. Okay. But if you remember, before we applied this, my button was really tiny, but not anymore. Okay. And now, dynamic positioning. Okay. So here, I'll basically use the same thing. Okay. We have screen width and screen height. So if you want to put it at the center, okay, so basically that would be, okay, screen width divided by 2, okay, and screen height divided by 2. Okay. But then again, if you just do this, we will place, this is center. Okay. This is center. We have button this way. So if you truly want to put your button at the center, okay, now you have to subtract, okay, half of your button size. Okay. So this is simple math. But sometimes kind of hard to think about. Okay? So basically what we need to do is, it will be basically longer. Screen dot width divided by 2. Okay. So we want to put it in the left. So actually it should be plus. Well, wait. Plus, minus. Okay. Half of this thing. Half of this thing. So this is kind of tricky, but eventually, I mean, you can try to visualize. You have this button you place at the center, but placing this button at the center, okay, but our reference point is left top corner. So we want to kind of push it to the left side a little bit. So now, I'll save this and play it. Now it's centered. Now, whatever aspect ratio or resolution you use, it will be always centered. So in the same way, if you want to put this one in center in terms of the height, you basically do the same thing. This plus this time plus something like this. So now, if you look at it, it will be longer, okay? But if you think about the logic, okay, we are now using dynamic positioning. So sometimes, if you think this is kind of long, okay, some programmers, I think I'm going to use my screen width a lot. Then what usually people do is, okay, I mean, this is not something you have to do, but sometimes people do like float, okay, my width equal, okay, something like, I declare that whenever we start, I can do my width equal screen dot width. And then instead of this now, screen width, I'm going to use my width. It will be basically do the same thing. So sometimes people do it this way. Or sometimes people just leave it as a long line like this. So again, like, it's not really critical, but if you are going to be a programmer, okay, you probably want to find a way how to simplify this thing. So you probably want to think about, screen dot width divided by 2. That's something I use a lot. Then creating one more variable so that I don't have to type all these things again later. But anyways, it basically does the same thing. So sometimes there's argument that, which code is better? Okay, so there are arguments. So sometimes people insist that, your code should be simple. So some people might say, this look ugly because you're basically repeating some stuff, okay, and it's really long. So some people might not like it. Okay. But then again, as long as it works, I wouldn't complain. Yep. But I'm saying sometimes in industry, we don't really care much about like whether we shorten this or not. But sometimes people care because there's going to be multiple programmers who work on this. And then you really have to talk to other programmers. What's the better way to name your variable or shorten certain things. Okay. Anyways, that's dynamic positioning. And now, one more thing though. Okay. We do this, start is fine. Okay. This looks fine, start. But now, it's really tiny. So I'm using 2960 times 1440 landscape. And now my button is big enough. That's good. But my text isn't big enough. Okay. So that's tricky. Okay. So there are many different ways to go around it. Okay. But I'll just give you the simpler way to do, which is GUI button with texture. Okay. So basically, now you can use this click as a text. Instead of using text, you can actually use image file. Okay. And then that image file, you can make it as maybe 600 by like 200, like kind of big. Okay. And then what's going to happen is it will basically fill up your button. Okay. So as long as that proportion is right, okay, it will appear in big enough size. Okay. I probably don't have to do it, but well, why not? I'll just show you. Okay. So you can use Photoshop or Illustrator. And create new. I think there could be some like a button. You can download button if you want. There's going to be tons of button image. You can download one of this. Okay. And maybe I should do it. So I have this button. Okay. And now I'm going to type something like ask. Okay, not my best button, but it has something. Where is... Let's say I'm going to make it... Oops. Something like this. Again, not my best button. Oops. Okay, I have this ugly button, and oh, I shouldn't. So here, you actually have to save it as. In this case, I have to save it as either PNG or CompuServe GIF, because I want to have this the round the corner with the transparent background. Okay. So maybe what I want to do is I want to kind of clean up a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to save it as, okay, two options. Okay, you can use CompuServe GIF, okay, or PNG if you want to have that transparent background. Otherwise, if you flatten it and save it as JPEG, okay, what's going to happen is it will have that white background. Okay. So I'm going to use PNG and save it. Replace, that's fine. Okay. And now I have this button. Okay, this button right over here. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my script. Okay. So it's exactly the same as how you use it draw texture. Okay. So your reference is here. Okay. Public texture, button texture. But instead of that text, okay, you basically put this button texture here. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll just copy this one and paste it and name it as button texture. Okay. And then here, well, actually, this is start. Actually, oh yeah, I'll just use it. BTN texture. So now, okay, I'll save this. And now here, because we made it as public, we are going to see that button texture here. I'm going to drag this button, oops. Or I'll just do this. Okay, select this button texture. And now, if I play it, ask big enough, it actually now still has this black background because in my GUI skin layout, I have that background button. Okay, so you can actually turn this off, none. Okay, so now I just got rid of that original button texture, okay, default button texture, and now you'll have something like this. Okay. And then here now realize before we actually knew, okay, we are hovering on this button, but actually now it doesn't display that because we don't display any text. So sometimes that is why you want to create like 2 or 3 button images. Okay. So here you can see easily find something like button up. Okay. Oh, not that one.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. But sometimes button up or clicked, I should be able to find this one. Maybe not. Oh, here, yeah. So sometimes people create buttons. Well, actually, this is not what I want to see. Okay. But sometimes designers makes button up, down, or clicked separately so that like they can use it. They can use multiple images for one button. Okay. So here, if I have more time, if I care more about my button and interactivity, I would actually go back here, and then this is regular one, and just simple thing, right? So actually, I'm going to make this one. I'll actually do this. Okay. I'm going to save this as PNG. This is ORI, original button. Okay. So sometimes, now actually then like you don't have to use that. I don't want to make it too complicated. But this one, you can actually put just 2 quotation mark meaning nothing. And then here you can have no more is, oh. So I mean, you cannot just do this because this one will apply everything. So, but I just want to kind of show you how it can work. Okay, so this one, original one, hover is this one. Then okay, save and play. So now this is original one. When you put your cursor over, it displays that second image. Okay. So you can possibly use multiple images doing this. Okay. But then again, you really cannot use this for now because so yeah, that's one thing you can do. But then again, like there's an issue now because if you do this, okay, this one now, every button will be ask and ask, so there's going to be some issue. But anyways, so ideally the better way is using that the button texture. And what else? Okay, that's button texture. Now screen orientation and two more things: screen orientation and application quit. So sometimes what we want to do, okay, so now actually is portrait, landscape, portrait, okay. A lot of times, I mean, it's up to you, okay, but if you want to see it this way, you can actually lock your screen orientation, okay. Fairly simple. Screen orientation. Whenever you start, you want to initialize it, okay. Screen orientation equals screen orientation. This is landscape. So if you actually click like here, see here, this one, it will give you some other options: portrait, portrait upside down, landscape left, landscape right, auto rotation, okay. And how to do this is fairly simple. Again, screen dot orientation in your start. Now it's a landscape left, so it will be locked. Okay. But in this case, we want to use portrait. Okay. So I'll simply use portrait. And then one last thing, okay, we can think about quit button. Okay. So for this one, I'll just go over really quick. Actually, I'm going to put it on the first page. Okay. So let's say, ooh, then I'm going to put it as not at the center. I'm going to do like 90%. So this will be located at the bottom. Okay, 90% of the screen, so it will be located at the bottom. Okay, and then this one will be quit. Okay, it wouldn't appear like this, but we create this button, simple button. Okay. And now I realize I have to have one more parenthesis. Okay, screen width minus. Oh. Okay, so this is X and this is Y. So I'm going to change Y value as screen.height multiplied by 0.9f. And then we basically put application quit. And then actually quit is I forgot to parenthesis. Okay. This one. Okay. And application quit doesn't work in your editor. Meaning if you just save this and play this, now we do have this quit button here. Okay. And if you click on it, it doesn't quit. Okay. So, but that's okay because application.quit doesn't work in editor. But if you export it as APK and install that in your phone and you click this button, it will close your app. Okay. All right. So this is kind of typical practice that people do. Okay. Another thing sometimes people do. Okay. This is a little more, a little bit. Okay. But okay, this is kind of typical way. If you create kind of super simple game, we don't want to invest too much time on the screen width and height. So we go like this. But sometimes there are other ways people do. Other ways people do is, for instance, at the start point, okay, here we basically get to know what's the screen height. So here I'll actually use this. Did I erase that? My screen. Okay. So here I'm going to say, okay, plot my width. And plot my height. Okay. So this is like some people use this way, and if you want to be super serious about your game and releasing it in different countries, or releasing your game to include all the existing devices. Sometimes people do this, but this takes more time and then time and energy. Okay. So now, at the beginning, you can actually detect what's your width. My width is screen dot width, and my height equal screen dot height. So at the beginning, you would detect it. Okay. And then if my width is greater than 1800, or sometimes you would say my width is greater than 1800 and 2n sign, my height is greater than, okay, this is 1800, and I'll just make a number, 1200. And then now I'm going to use another thing, like now here I'm going to say integer screen setting. Okay. And then here now screen setting will be 1. Okay. And then you can have another one like else if it could be different numbers, like 1400 and 800. Okay. Then screen setting will be 2. Okay. And then here, okay, you basically create, oh, this is stage number 0. Now, okay, instead of using this one, or you can actually use different types of images or whatever. But logic is now if screen setting equals 1. Okay. Or actually, yeah, I'm not going to do this, do everything here, but the idea is, and then like so here my width, my height is this, and then screen setting 1 and screen setting 2, and then here if screen setting equals 1, so here, well, I mean, now you can actually decide screen setting is 1. You can make up like something like a use width, okay, 1800, and height 1200. Okay. So here, in this case, use width 1400, height as 800. Okay. So now I'm basically making more variables, but here instead of this screen width and screen height now, it can be some different numbers, different fixed numbers. Okay. So what I mean by that is, so in this way, okay, you can have different screen settings, okay, and depending on screen settings, so here at the beginning, okay, update, you can have if screen setting equals 1, okay, so this one is real width real height, something like that. Okay. And then here basically I need to create that too. Float real width, float real height. I mean, you don't have to do this, but I kind of want you to understand like and now here if screen setting is 1, real width equal 1800, and real height equal 1400. Else if screen setting equal 2, it will be a little smaller, 1400 or 800. Or sometimes people use multiple images in different qualities, different resolution. So here, now actually, the reason why I put it in update is because whenever you rotate it, okay, whenever you rotate your phone, the screen width and screen height get changed. So it actually detects that screen width and height. So actually, I have to put this one again in update as well. So whenever you rotate your phone, it actually detects the width and height, and then you can change the settings. So this is basically, if you are doing some web design, you probably see, you've probably heard of responsive layout. So here, this one is a examples of responsive layout. So your width is this much, and then you will get this layout. But if you stretch it, extend it, it will change the layout. Okay. It's possible because all the system and devices, it can detect the current width and height of the window. Okay. So by doing that, you can possibly switch. In this case, in this website, you can switch some CSS elements, or in your game, you can actually create different profiles or different settings and then apply it whenever you detect new width or height. Okay. So again, like if you truly care about those things, sometimes people actually create profiles. Well, I put it as screen settings, but it could be screen profiles for specific devices like Samsung or Xiaomi or LG or other Android devices. Okay? So you can actually detect the screen size and then apply different screen profiles. So at this point, you don't have to think about that yet, but eventually, if you really want to release your mobile game, you should consider all different types of devices, and you should carefully think about how you are going to display your information or game object in the properly or correct ways for the device. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty much it. And any question? So these are things you have to kind of consider again. At this point, you probably just need to think about like using the screen dot width and screen dot height. But again, later on, if you are serious about releasing game for mobile device, you really have to consider different types of devices, and you should think about the different screen settings and profiles. If there's no other question, I'll see you guys next week. Actually, next Tuesday, I'm not going to be here, but I'm going to ask someone to come here to play some video so that you will have something to do. Mainly next week, we are going to form a group for group project. So come here, but I have actually meeting in Chicago, so I'm not going to be here, but someone will be here to do certain things. And it might be good news. BSGI and my company, we're going to meet with CompTIA, which is a company that administer like A++, the IT related security, certificate. They want us to create some like gamified game that can actually test their cybersecurity stuff. So if we are going to get the contract, meaning I will hire some student developers. So make sure you kind of look at your portfolio and apply. All right, I guess that's it, and I'll see you guys next week, next Thursday.
I just missed the application button for the quit. That's the only thing I missed.